Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. This is episode 11, and we are past the first week of postseason here in Southeast Missouri. David, how you doing today?
Just fine. We're watching some teams get ready for basketball season now. It's time to put up or shut up, and some of the teams are performing well, and other ones they're going to be playing basketball.
Now, I mean, for this first round of games, we kind of saw some of the writing on the walls for some of these teams, but it is surprising to see that, score differentials, how fast you're getting ready for basketball. I mean, that's an important part of Southeast Missouri sports, I would say.
Yeah. Some of the, really, I mean, there's only a couple of scores that were kind of surprising, but, in those games, they were very surprising as far as how one team changed, over a few weeks, and the other one, maybe didn't improve as much. Mm-hmm. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's mostly for the first round games, it was what was expected. The better seeded teams, kind of rolled, and we talked about that last week. It's kind of expected, and that's just what you get when you get to district time. I think this week coming up, you'll start getting a lot more closer games and some games that will really be we'll really have a big emphasis on.
For the most part, let's talk about Class 2 because that's where we're getting most of our games in our area from. So kind of a surprising thing, I would say, is New Madrid County Central or Kelly at New Madrid County Central. That ended that game 36-12. What kind of happened there? I thought New Madrid was going to be more kind of in higher spirits going into this game.
After beating them, by 33 points a couple of weeks ago, you would think that New Madrid was, you thought New Madrid was the favorite, and I think pretty much everybody in the area kind of thought New Madrid wins that game and goes to play Valley. But Kelly came in there, and the first quarter was all New Madrid, but the second quarter, Kelly made some adjustments. They were able to run the ball a little bit, and then that opened up their passing game. And Skyler still may be the best quarterback I've seen all year as far as scrambling, trying to find and just buying time and hitting an open receiver. He did that repeatedly in the second quarter against New Madrid. Just was unable. They couldn't bring him down. He would just kind of scramble to the right, and that would give Grant Burleson time to get open. New Madrid could not find Grant Burleson after that initial once the scramble drill started. They could not find Grant Burleson. Grant Burleson caught like 5 or 6 balls for 128 yards, pretty much all of it in the second quarter. Skyler still threw for 193 in the game, 182 of it in the first half. And they didn't have to run the ball or throw the ball in the second half because they just ran the ball, and New Madrid just couldn't stop it. And it was just a tough go for New Madrid. But Kelly looked really, really good. They've really improved from the first time they played New Madrid.
And it's kind of like we said, once you get into district play, I mean, a team that's kind of more in the downrange from regular season, I mean, they can come back and rally. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Kelly's going to have to play Valley this coming Friday, but that's going to be a tougher game, I would say, than New Madrid.
Yeah, and I think, too, one of the things that was different in this game, but the first time these two teams played, it was in that hurricane weather, and you had the rain and wind and everything, and Kelly, a lot of their game is throwing the football, and they were not able to throw it, and New Madrid just kind of sold out on the run and didn't allow Kelly to run. It kind of started out that same way on Friday night, but then once Kelly was able to throw the ball, it just opened up everything for the run game, and New Madrid just didn't have an answer for it, and a couple of bad turnovers from New Madrid in their own territory really kind of put the game away early in the second half, and so now like I said, Kelly's going to have to play Valley, but hey, you get another game, you get another shot, and who knows what happens when you go up and play Valley. I mean, obviously Valley's going to be a heavy favorite in that game, but you get the chance, and New Madrid's going to be playing they're going to be playing basketball, but New Madrid's young. They've got a really young team, and they play play a lot of sophomores and actually several freshmen too. And so I mean, these are learning moments for them, and hopefully they learn from this and get better. And, they're 4-6, and I think it's, probably about what I kind of expected, 4-6, 5-5. So that, they can learn from this. They've got some talent that's going to be there next year with Charlie Rosano back as a senior, and their quarterback Nolan Mungle's just a sophomore. And they've got, most of the receivers are back. So, I mean, yeah, they've got a lot of talent that's going to be there next year. I expect big things from them next year.
Yeah, a full count of New Madrid, kind of their season in total has been, that growing inconsistency that they haven't really experienced for the past couple of years. What do you think is going to change going from this year to next year that they're going to have to work on specifically?
I think, just the overall toughness. I think, as freshmen, when things kind of go, freshmen and sophomores, when things kind of go bad, you kind of hang your head and you don't kind of rally around. And I think that's the biggest thing is when things tended to go bad, it just kind of would get snowball with them. Mm-hmm. I think more veteran teams, they're able to kind of stop that at times. If something goes bad, they're able to recover from it a lot better. I don't think that this New Madrid team really handled adversity very well. And I think as you get older, I think that's something that just comes with maturity, and I think that's the biggest thing for them because they've got the talent. I mean, they've got a lot of speed and just overall just playing more games. I mean, the more you play, just the better you're going to get. But I think toughness and just the overall just maturity of the team as they get older, I think that's just going to be a benefit for them because they've got a lot of pieces in place, a lot of weapons offensively, and so I think as they get older, I think they'll be just getting better.
Well, best of luck to them. I hope next year they reload and kind of come back a little bit stronger. But best of luck to them in basketball.
Yeah, I think they're going to be I think they're going to surprise some people in basketball. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in a few weeks.
All right, moving on. Portersville at Crothersville. Sorry, I'm looking at this bracket top to bottom. Ended that game 7-40. I tuned in to watch this game live. This game went pretty much how I expected it to. Portersville held on a little bit better than I thought. Their biggest issue was one, throwing picks that kind of killed them. And man, they're once they got into the red zone, it just they couldn't convert points. It just never happened. Yeah,
and you're going to have to convert when you get in the red zone when you're playing a team like Crothersville because they're so explosive, and they're just a tough team. Portersville kind of they lost 6 of their last 7. They just kind of ended the year. On a rough little slide here, and it's just you hate that for them. They played some tough teams late. They played Crothersville twice in the last, I think, 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's tough because Crothersville is one of the best teams in the area. But Portersville, they hung tough early, and you just can't. It's just tough to put away you got to make all the right plays if you're playing a team like Crothersville.
Yeah, and I mean for Portersville's credit, they're a very tough team. Physically, the amount of times you see a player go down and then get up and just shake it off, I mean, that's impressive, but you've got to start getting points on the board. And I know that's a very harsh statement, but it's true. That's points win a football game. I mean, their defense is good when it's good and they can hold teams, but that punch it in football, it works when it works. But when you're throwing interceptions, once you start getting midfield and everybody gets a little skittish about what are we going to do, that's those panic moments that you have to build off of and you have to improve going into next year. And I know that's going to be difficult, but that's where you're at as a program.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough. I mean, because you lost a couple of your better players to injury, and that really kind of puts you when you're a small school like that, you don't have a ton of guys coming coming up behind them. So it's tough to replace and just move on. So when you miss guys like Jay Bogan, I mean that's a tough guy to miss, and you just can't replace those guys at a small school, and it's just tough for them. But I thought they had a good year. It's just there at the end it's just like they couldn't just get over the hump. They played well against New Madrid at times, but then, it just kind of got away from them. They played well against Crothersville at times, both games, and then it just gets away from them. I mean, they're not far off. It's just, but they just couldn't put it together for a full game.
And I mean, to Crothersville's credit, I mean, they're consistently good. This has just been an amazing year for their program.
Yeah, they're solid. They're solid all across the board, and And you know that they want another shot at Valley, and maybe some good weather this time. So hopefully they get that. But they look primed to get that district championship game.
Moving on, let's talk about Scott City at East Prairie. Ended that game 29-49.
This is another game that kind of flipped. Early in the year, Scott City, beat them 22-0, and then you had a big flip in points here as East Prairie, put it on them pretty good. That's really not surprising though with the way that the teams had kind of played. East Prairie had really improved through the course of the year. I think Scott City I think they kind of fooled us. They were 4-1, and we were thinking, hey, they're a really good team, but then they've lost 4 of their last 5, ended the season. They just didn't. I don't know. There's just something just didn't click with them.
Well, to me, they kind of hit that same spot that Porterville does in my mind, which I was very high on them early in the season. But now that we've gotten to the end of it, it's just kind of like, okay, you fell off, which, hey, that happens. When you're kind of in the more middling pack of all these teams in the local area, that you kind of start to blend in with each other. Not to say that there wasn't good spots in the season. Obviously there were. You have 2 really great players that, get mentioned every game. But, Scott City's got to build up more than that. It can't just be those 2 guys that everybody looks to. With all these dominant teams like Crothersville, anybody in the area like that, you're looking at an entire team, 11 man. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's 11 men on the field that can win a game. So, maybe that's going to come with experience too. Totally possible. But right now, Scott City's, I feel like they've earned the record, and, hopefully they'll turn it around next year.
Yeah, they finished 5-5, which, we didn't have really high expectations for them coming into the season because they had lost so much from last year's team. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of about where we thought they would be. Like I said, I think they just kind of fooled us early when they were 4-1. Maybe some of the teams they played weren't as strong as we thought they were going to be, but they weren't a bad football team. East Prairie is a good team, and they've really improved over the course of the year. This is their first 8-win season since 2009. They haven't had a 9-win season since '94, and they made the state semifinals that year. This is a rare East Prairie team, and Connor Markham had 2 or 3 touchdowns the other night. Tavion Ware had 3 touchdowns the other night. They are just tough to stop right now on both sides of the ball. Special teams, Markham had a punt return for a touchdown. They just had a lot of. They're hitting on all facets of the game, and I'm very interested to see how they match up with Crothersville because. They haven't. Yeah, really, with the exception of Dexter, and obviously the first game against Scott City, but they've kind of just manhandled people, and so I'm kind of interested to see how they match up against Crothersville.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing too is that East Prairie, they've got this team of destiny aura to them right now. Hopefully that carries them. I think the biggest issue they're going to have with Crothersville is that it's going to be a shootout of just point after point after point on both sides. So somebody's defense is going to have to step up, and it's kind of a who blinks first. And then I'm going to say towards the half, whoever's got a lead is just going to keep ramping that lead. That's just where I'm seeing it in the back of my mind. Let's talk about District 3 really quick. There's not a ton to talk about. But we do know who Dexter's going to play. Yeah. So Dexter's going to end up playing Fredericktown, which I think they've been prepping for. Fredericktown, Potosi, they both have weapons that, I think Dexter's kind of more on the outlook of, but they weren't exactly sure who was going to get it. I thought Potosi was actually going to take this game.
Yeah, and Fredericktown kind of had a tough week. You have the fire up there, it canceled school on Friday. Then you're supposed to have you've earned the home game, but then because of the fire and the issues with the smoke and everything, you have to move that game to Potosi. So here you earn this home game, and then you got to go up to Potosi and play. Kind of shows the toughness that they have as a team that they go up there and they win a hard fought game. So kudos to them. I think I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight with against Dexter. I'm sure we'll talk about that in our previews here in a little bit. But for Fredericktown, they're not a they're not a terrible football team. Their toughness. I'm very impressed with the toughness that they had to go up there and when everything kind of going against you, and who knows how much practice time you actually got on Thursday when that fire was, Wednesday and Thursday when those fires were raging. How much practice time did you actually get? And if so, did you have to practice in the gym or wherever? So so for them to get that win, that's pretty impressive. It's tough that you got to go play an undefeated Dexter team next. But hey, you got that district win, and you're moving on. So kudos to them.
Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about Kennett at Park Hill Central. So the score is much different than I thought it was going to be. So, but I also know that Park Hills scored all 30 of those points, before Kennett got anything on the board.
Right. I was score watching this game, and I was actually kind of impressed with Kennett to hang close. I think it was like 16-0 or 12-0, something, at half. It was they were in the game. And then, obviously, Park Hills, kind of stretched it out, but, Kennett stuck with them, and then were able to get some, couple of touchdowns late to make it a little more respectable. But Kennett, a tough year for them. A lot of injuries, a lot of young players, just a tough year for them. But I thought they, I really thought Park Hills was going to come out and just put it on them early and then kind of cruise to the end. And they weren't able to really do that. So I think, Kennett put up a good fight, and that's good to see. And, you hate that they went 0-10, but it was, pretty good performance there at the last game, I guess.
So talking about that, what does Kennett have to do going into next year to kind of right this ship?
That's a great question. Schedule Veritas. That would help. Lighten up that schedule for one. To end the season with Poplar Bluff and Cape Central. I don't know how that's going to help you. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You've got to get these players ready to go for next year. You had a lot of guys that were kind of just not ready to go. Get them in the weight room and really get them bigger, stronger. That was something I kind of noticed in when I saw them play earlier this year. Just they weren't real big and strong guys, and maybe kind of lighten up that schedule a little bit. Obviously some teams you have to play because they're in your conference, but when you got some of those out of conference games, I don't think it helps you to play a Poplar Bluff or a Cape Central. Go play a team that's more your size. They should be playing Malden. They've been rivals with Malden for forever, and the fact that those two teams are not playing is that's an atrocity to me. They were rivals for as long as I've known, and it was always a good rivalry game. Those two teams should be playing, and I think that would be a good matchup between two teams. So hopefully they can find some way to manage that schedule. I don't know. I know they're on usually 2-year contracts, so I don't know if you'll be able to do anything for next year, but that's a tough answer. I think get bigger and stronger is the main thing, and just kind of get those kind of like New Matter, kind of mature your younger guys.
Moving on really quick. Let's talk about Herculaneum at St. Genevieve. This might determine an outlook of what Dexter's going to end up playing. So Park Hill Central and St. Genevieve is a pretty interesting matchup. That's kind of a more for Dexter fans. It's kind of seeing two teams that you don't really like play each other to determine who you're going to play. So it must be exciting for them. Yeah.
And, obviously those two teams played earlier this year. I think it was a double overtime game. I think, I'd say, that's going to be a really good game. Mm-hmm. And if you're Dexter, it's half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, whatever, whoever comes out of it's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a walkover game against either one of those teams. They're going to be and they're going to be out to get Dexter because, like you said, both teams have some history with Dexter. Yeah. So I think that's just going to be one of those really good high school football games, and we'll see. It's tough to beat a team twice. I don't know. I don't know who to pick in that game. I don't know. That's just going to be a coin flip, and may the best team win.
It's definitely one that I want to watch. Yeah. if I had to say, just because I want to see some a really tough, close football game, and I think these two teams would provide it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, moving on to Class 4. The only game we have to talk about in Class 4 is Sikeston.
Yeah, they went up there and they lost 55-22. I talked to a couple of people from Sikeston, and the score's a bit misleading. Sikeston set the school record for passing yards in a game, from what I understand, over 400. Unfortunately, they threw 5 picks in the game, 3 of those in the end zone. So you can move the ball and get it in scoring position, but you couldn't quite score. Obviously, that would have made the game a lot closer if you can get those touchdowns. But Sikeston has not played well on the road all year. Mm-hmm. They just and Hillsborough playing without their starting quarterback, who's going to North Dakota State. They were still able to put 55 points up on you. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of improvement that Sikeston needs to do there. But It's the fact that they were able to move the ball that well. I mean, that speaks, and they play a lot of guys who are going to be back next year. So that kind of speaks to the future that you got some, you've got something there to build toward. At the same time, you gave up 55 points to a team with their backup quarterback, and you've got to shore up that defense and fix some things on that end. But so I guess it's kind of kind of some good and bad coming out of it. But you finished the season 3-7. I know that they would have liked a few more wins, but I mean, it is what it is, and you just kind of got to keep building toward next year, and another team that needs to get bigger and stronger, and find some speed. I mean, for a Sykeston team, they just don't have a lot of speed that you would think a Sykeston team would have, and they've got to find some speed on that team to kind of help them match up against the Cape Centrals and other bigger schools that they play.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of kids that Sykeston has to pull from, you think they would find kind of more ways to fill those holes that they're kind of lacking in.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they're a school that has soccer, so you got a lot of kids go play soccer. They have a basketball program that's kind of rolling right now, so a lot of the kids want to be on that basketball team, and they're kind of focusing on basketball and not really wanting to play football and get hurt. So you've got some kids there that aren't kind of focusing on anything but basketball. So that kind of takes away from that football program. And soccer is a big thing because you've got a couple of guys, I think 3 or 4 guys, I think, that would really help the football team if they played football, but they play soccer. So it's just the way it is. There's got to be, you would think there's got to be some better athletes that's not playing football that maybe could, maybe convinced to come out and play. But right now they just have to, do with what they have, and what they don't have is a ton of team speed. And that's something I really think that hopefully they can find something in there to help with that team speed, because you need that against some of the teams they play. I
mean, best of luck to Sykeston going forward. I mean, they're coming out of a difficult situation too. I mean, like we've talked about, coaching carousel, Coach May coming in. I mean, it's obvious that this program needs to be improved. You're not going to do that in 1 year. No. This is
a process here. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, I don't know if they really knew how bad it was whenever they came in. I think a lot of people look out, from the outside looking in, see Sykeston, and they're like, oh, well, it shouldn't be that hard to turn around. It's, but you get in there and really there's not a ton of talent in there right now. And you just have to get that, you just got to get that fixed, and you got to get it fixed from the younger groups. And I think some of their younger programs are starting to improve and get better. But it's going to be a few years before you see any results from that. So you just got to continue to work with what you have and get them better, and hope that maybe you can get a few more athletes out to play. And I think they've got the right coaching staff in place. It's just going to take some time.
Well, now Sykeston gets to look forward to basketball, and what a season that's probably going to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be mentioning them quite a bit on this podcast in basketball in the next few months.
All right, talking about Class 5, let's look at Cape Central's game against Webster Groves, 7-42.
Yeah, they just kind of came out and took care of business. Nothing flashy, nothing. They kind of came out, stuck to the basics, continued to rest some of their guys that were hurt. Zaire Thomas, 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, continues to be dominant. But they just replaced, Keyshawn Boyd with Terrence Murphy, who 86 yards and a touchdown. He had a big week last week too, and he's somebody that's going to be there for the future. I think he's just a sophomore, so I mean he's someone else. And I think their quarterback, Declan Pittman, he's kind of very underrated. He can run it and throw it, and he was able to do a little bit of that against Webster Groves. I mean they were just clearly the better team. They came out, took care of business, and just kind of did what they needed to do, and set up their game this week against Poplar Bluff.
In a way, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, I know it's financials, the amount of kids that are in the area, but Cape Central, I mean, that is the template for what I would like every football team to look like.
Yeah, and I mean they can kind of do it all. They can run, they can throw, they play good defense. They can't beat Jackson apparently, but they can beat everybody else in the area. And they have a lot of talent. And even whenever they miss somebody like Keyshawn Boyd, they're able to replace him with a Terrence Murphy or Murray. Yeah. I mean they're just very deep. Very solid. They got a great coaching staff, and I mean, that's it. They're kind of a way to do it around here.
All right, let's move on to Class 6. The only other team we have to talk about is Jackson. and they are on a bye week. So
they didn't even have to play, so that's always good. They've got a good game coming up this week against Lindbergh, but yeah, it's always nice when you get the week off and just can kind of rest your guys and I'm sure Cape Central would have liked that, but they still had to play but hey, it's next week they're going to have to play Jackson is, so we'll that's going to be a good game for them.
All right, that's all we have to talk about for current scores, but we have an interview with Coach Chad Jamerson. I was very fortunate to go talk to him, so we're going to throw it to ourselves right now.
Fans, it's time now to meet the starters for this evening's game.
Okay, joining us today on the SEMO Sports Zone is Chad Jamerson. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. So just to get into it, 9-0. What's that feel like?
You know what? Still processing it. It's only been a couple days, and in 20 years, I wasn't really sure if I'd ever get to this point as a coach. So to be honest with you, just trying to soak it all in, telling the kids the same thing. Let's enjoy this moment. Let's not forget we've got something to do in the future, but it's okay to smile a little bit and be happy for once.
How much relief did you get when it finally happened, too?
Quite a bit. Not to be disrespectful, but we kind of knew, how week 9 was going to go for us just based on things that we'd seen on film. But still there's always that back of your mind, what if we don't hold on to the football? What if we miss some tackles? Because that number 24, Rusty Underwood, he was a heck of a ball player. And those little thoughts creep into your head. So when it finally happened, quite a bit of relief, not just relief for myself, but relief for the program and the kids in the community. I knew that everybody wanted something special this week.
Yeah, it must have been a ton of pressure because it hasn't been an undefeated season since 1986.
Yeah.
And so I think when did you think like that expectation like really hit you this season too?
Probably after the Southern Boone game. I started thinking, okay, we might have something special here. And, then the pressure really started mounting leading into the Park Hills game. I've had no reservations with telling people how I feel about Corey Swice. I think he's arguably one of the best coaches in the Midwest, not just in Missouri. So there was a lot of pressure that I was applying to myself to try to hold the standard there and come out and be prepared for a good game. And then when the Park Hills game went in our direction and went our way, the pressure, I guess, mounted a little bit more. Just the expectation of, hey, let's go out and let's take care of business and let's finish this out the way we want to finish it.
Yeah, it was an awesome season in general. I think offensively and defensively, your players just turned it on. What do you think, coaching aside, what do you think really brought those players into the fold in that circumstance?
I think it's really kind of a perfect storm right now. We've got a great situation where we've got kids that are working hard. We've got kids that are extremely talented, and we've got kids that are bought in to what we're trying to sell them. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what offense you run or what defense you run. If you can get the kids to buy in and work hard at the fundamentals, do what you're trying to get them to do, and really kind of in this situation, just stay out of their way and let them be athletes. You get what you get right now. And that's a lot. It has everything to do with the kids. Everyone talks about X's and O's, but any really good high school football coach worth his salt is going to tell you it's more Jimmys and Joes than X's and O's.
How exciting was it to kind of see those playmakers on your team really kind of get that elevation this year, being those standout players that was recognized by pretty much everybody in the area?
Yeah, everyone, it was no secret. Nolan Alford's a heck of a ball player. Lee Michael McDonald's a heck of a ball player. What was really nice this year was to see some of that recognition go towards kids that, play the offensive line. Caden Lees and Peyton Hartlines and Sawyer Rashers, or to see those defensive linemen get the credit that they have earned. That's really been the probably the biggest thing that's come out of this is the guys that have been in the shadows are starting to get a little bit of light on them. But it's exciting to see these kids' hard work come to fruition. I know how hard Nolan Alford works day in and day out. I know how hard Jackson Howard works 365 a year, or how hard a Jason Hervoyevich, or, throw a rock, to be honest with you, at any kid we've got. So it was really nice to see all their hard work pay off, and then to see it pay off in big games, such as the Southern Boone game, such as the Park Hills game, those games that really mattered to all of us, for them to come through and shine like a Houston Neely the last 3 or 4 weeks on the back end of our defense. It's been satisfying for the kids.
Just to touch on that Southern Boone game, because that was kind of a out of nowhere game on the schedule for a lot of people. What kind of inspired that choice to hit at that midseason point?
Well, part of it, you can give the credit to Donovan. When Donovan had to cancel their varsity season this year, it was kind of sudden. It was kind of late. I think it was in early April, late March, and there just weren't any teams out there. I knew who Southern Boone was based on the Class 3 meeting last year and looking at the Class 3 polls. It just happened that they were also looking for a game the same week. And we made some phone calls, credit to Mr. Dowdy of pushing them to give us an answer, and credit to their program to saying, hey, we'll do it. And, that it really worked out for both of us because, we're not going anywhere and they're not going anywhere, and we'll see each other again next year. So hopefully it'll give both of us that good midseason push to help improve our programs. Everybody says it, it's iron sharpens iron. That's what we want with our schedule, is to sharpen as much as we can.
Kind of to touch on that too, so that's kind of been one of the detriments, I think, to the season in some people's mind, is that the strength of schedule has kind of been off. Do you think that's more just year by year in the area, or do you think it's more, hey, we need to beef up our schedule these coming years?
I think football in Southeast Missouri, or small school football in general, is cyclical. If you look over the last 20 years, you're going to see programs that were in the early 2000s that were really, really good, that have maybe fallen off for a little while and back to being really good. You think of a Hayti, you think of a Malden, who throughout the early 2000s, Hayti was really strong. They fell off just a little bit and then regained power and then became state champions. You look at Malden, had some rough spots in the early 2000s, had that class with Trey Porter and the Krigler kid, and then they came through with Thompson and Sims, and those guys made that state championship game run. Now they've fallen off a little bit, and now they're rising. I think in Southeast Missouri, small football in general, I think it's cyclical. You don't have a lot of teams, go to the top and stay on top like a valley. For some of us, our talent pool gets shallow at times, and we've got to dig a little bit deeper. And then for some of us, our talent pool doesn't get shallow. You look at a Crothersville, they're always a threat to be really, really good. I think that goes with culture. I think that goes with how the community embraces the sport. This year, I would argue that, strength of schedule has made an impact on everybody. But when it all comes down to it, who expected East Prairie to win 7 ball games this year?
Sure.
Kudos to those guys, man. They came out and they figured out what their identity was early. And that only helps our strength of schedule. It's the same way, if you look at it from a Capes perspective, with the exception of Jackson, they're a big dog. But they've got to play other big dogs like Bluff, like Farmington. Well, right now, Bluff and Farmington aren't playing up to the former Bluff and Farmington standard. I don't think it's necessarily a negative towards Cape that they're up and everyone's down. So sometimes I think strength of schedule is overrated. That was a long, long talk to get to just that small point, wasn't it?
I think it's great just because, you got to play all the local teams that you're expected to play. All the local rivalries that are built up throughout the years. Those are the games you have to play. Mm-hmm. So, but I think about Southern Boone and Park Hills, and because those are teams that are pretty much at your caliber at that point.
No doubt.
And, to play tough games like that and to show out, I think that shows more to your team than what everybody else has been saying.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, too, you've got to take other things into account other than just, I guess, the football aspect of it. We got to remember in 2024, diesel prices are up. So, it's going to be hard to travel all those games. And some of these higher caliber schools maybe have the finances to travel that much. But at the end of the day, we've got to be accountable to all these sports. If you start having football travel every week, 3-4 hours, then volleyball is going to, want to travel every 3 or 4 hours. And justifiably, our volleyball program had an exceptional season this year too. It's the same with our cross country kids. Our fall sports here all around are playing really, really well. A lot of that has to say with a testament to the hard work that these kids put in. We would all love to be able to play teams the caliber of Park Hills, a Southern Boone, a Valley, a Crothersville. But at the end of the day, sometimes we got to take our lumps, whether it's with the schedule or whether it's a rear end whoop from somebody else. But yeah, to your point, you're right. It's parity and it's nice to keep these rivalries going. We missed the Crothersville game this year.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because Crothersville, they're looking dominant this year too. What do you think that game would have turned out to be?
Of course, Dom's going to say that they would have won, and I'm going to say that we would have won. But I can tell you right now, it would have been a heck of a ball game. I think we matched up pretty well. I think we're fast enough to keep up with most of their team speed. Jamonte Alexander is a man. He's a man. The linebacker, Dominguez, I believe.
That's right.
I think he was 55, a man. Sammy Bryant, a man. So we would have had our work cut out for us defensively. I think it would have been a phenomenal game, and that was something that we missed this year. This would have been one of the great years to have that game just because of the caliber that they're playing at and the caliber that we're playing at. I tell you, the Gate would have made some money.
So let's talk about districts really quick. So what we're thinking is probably going to happen is you're going to be facing off against either Park Hills again or St. Gen. Who are you kind of looking forward to playing more?
To be honest with you, I'm not looking at either one of them. Right now, we're looking at Fredericktown and Potosi.
That's fair.
Those are the two teams that we would face first, and both bring things to the table that could give us some issues. Potosi's got that really good running back that's back. His name evades me right now, but I can tell you the film of him doesn't. He's a guy that can cut back all the way across the field and make defenses pay. He's a pretty good ball player, and I love what Coach Williams has done at Fredericktown right now. They've come out and they've completely changed their offense, and they've kind of updated the wing tee, and they're running it from a gun, and they run some RPO stuff with that, and they do it pretty good. I know they took some lumps last week versus East Prairie, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think many teams want to play East Prairie right now. Those are really the two teams that we're looking at. If I was going to look at Park Hills and St. Gen, if I could give the default answer of neither, I would prefer that both of them just go ahead and forfeit and we just move on. Now, in all seriousness, though, Park Hill Central, a very good football team, very well coached with Corey Swice. When we saw them the first time, they came out and did things that we weren't ready for. They came out and they ran unbalanced quads. Who runs unbalanced quads in 2024? Well, Park Hill Central does, and they ran it really, really well. It looks like they installed it in 1 week. St. Gen, I think Coach Pope, with the pedigree that he has and who he's learned after at St. Gen, he does a phenomenal job. They're always big up front, and they're going to be very well coached. So both of those, all four of the teams that we may see in districts present quite a few challenges to us and present quite a bit of preparation. If we're looking at Park Hills, it's really hard to beat a good team twice. And that is something that, of course, is in the back of my mind. Now, I also
they're ready to see you again, too.
Oh, no doubt. I guarantee they've got another plan. But, that's why we play the games. That's why we play the games, and that's why we prep. And I would definitely match our game prep up to anybody else's in Southeast Missouri. Our kids know how to prepare now. So
I wanted to ask a couple quick questions about kind of more personal details with the team. So this is just for me. Stickers on the helmet, do they have any meaning?
Yeah. So we have skulls and crossbones, which are defensive stickers. And we have stars, which are offensive stickers. So, we win a game, everybody gets a star. We have 250-plus yards rushing. The running backs that had carries in that game and the offensive line get a star. If the defense gets a shutout, skull and crossbone. If you have a turnover, skull and crossbone. If you're one of our players of the week, if you're offense, you get a star. If you're defense, you get a skull and crossbone.
Yeah, I can. Every time we take a picture, especially of like Nolan Alford's helmet, things like that, and you see all those stickers, you're just like, oh, that is that guy.
No doubt. I was leery coming into this season about doing the stickers. In the past, I've played teams that had kids with helmets full of stickers, and then they end up losing 62-0. They all come out to that, I put on for my city, for my young Jeezy, and they're all hopping around and all hype. And then the game's over in 3 minutes, but they got a helmet full of stickers. So I was really hesitant towards that because I don't ever want that. But, it was something that after we talked as a coaching staff and I talked to my seniors, they thought it would be pretty cool. And the one group that we try to make sure we take care of every week is, if you look at all the helmets, the offensive line is the group with the most stickers. They don't get their names in the newspaper. They very rarely get talked about and in the media. So we wanted to make sure that we took care of those guys. And if you look at our offensive linemen's helmets, they are tricked out.
Oh, and they rule too, because you got to think about how oppressive your offense is only because they make those holds where they need to.
Oh, absolutely. I could go on for days about how talented this offensive line is. I could go on for days about how, before I took this job, I did my research on that incoming sophomore class, and I checked with people in the community. I came to gas stations. I came to restaurants. I didn't tell anybody what my name was. I didn't tell anybody why I was asking, but I was just asking about the football team. And all I'd heard were names like Caden Lee and Ethan Glaus and Peyton Hartline and Sawyer Rasher and Logan Pullum. Those names that you're hearing now are the names that I heard from the community. And I thought, okay, well, if the community is this bought into this group, maybe there's something there. And then I got my hands on some JV film, and I thought, man, we've got something. And was fortunate enough to get the job. But, those guys have done a phenomenal job. And for those offensive linemen, this has pretty much been a 12-month thing for them since I got here, whether it was in the summer, whether it was in the season, or whether they were putting in, 5 to 7 hours a week after school, just building their athletic base. They have worked extremely hard to get to where they're at right now.
So, kind of looking forward to, those pieces that you're losing after this year, how are you going to reload this team next year? Hard work, and gonna do what we've done for, since I started coaching, is we're gonna hit the halls. We're gonna try to be Pied Pipers. We're gonna smile. We're gonna love on them. We're gonna tell them how important they are, and we're gonna persuade them as best we can to believe in what we're trying to sell. At the end of the day, I think a lot of what we do is just selling ourselves as coaches and selling our program and trying to convince the kids and the parents that this is more than football and this is important for the rest of their life. And I think that's really something that a lot of coaches in Southeast Missouri do a great job of really selling their programs and getting kids involved and making it more about football. And that's the same here. While we are losing, several pieces, there are kids that are in this freshman class and this sophomore class, and even some of these juniors that have been working their tail off, waiting for their time in the light. We always tell a story of the old Michigan State game. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember the young man's name, but he has the big punt return. Or I can't remember exactly, but Jalen Hurts-Jones, I believe is what his name was, or Jalen Jones, something along those lines. One play for Michigan State, one of the biggest plays in Michigan State history, breaks his hip in the end zone of the play, and then never plays another down again. And that's what we're trying to sell our kids, I guess, that mentality of, hey, you've got one play, do the best you can with it, and try to be remembered. And then when that play's over with, if you're still able to play, get that next play. See if you can be remembered for that one. And that's really the mentality we're selling with these kids. And I think they're bought in. And I think the cupboard will be good for the next several years here. I think definitely going off that mentality, this is a season for them to all remember, for sure.
No doubt. A season for me to remember. I was a freshman in 1995 when East Prairie made a semifinal run. I was a small freshman. I was about 5 foot, 107 pounds. I basically hung out on the sideline. But I remember that John Burroughs game and Jason Youngblood kicking a game-winning field goal. I remember the St. Pius game and watching one of the assistant coaches headbutt a kid wearing a helmet and splitting his lip open and taping himself with athletic tape. I remember those moments. And I'm hoping that we have created several moments, not just for the kids that are playing, but the kids that are a part of it, to remember after this. And that's really what we want, is we want it to be something that's filled with wonderful moments they can tell their family about in the future.
Now, really quick, just to mention it, iron sharpens iron. How do you feel about Ian Penrod doing so well in East Prairie?
Oh, man, I love it. Number one, Ian Penrod is he has grown into becoming, I want to say friend, but I'm just going to say family. Man, I am so proud of the job that Ian Penrod has done. One of the first interactions that I had with Ian as an athlete was back in the summer of 2005. We were at a summer contact camp at Central Missouri, and because there was a kid that didn't travel with us, Ian Ian had to step in and play left tackle for us that day. Maybe it was right tackle. I can't remember. He was a freshman, and he was a really good freshman. But the kid that he was playing was an all-state defensive end from Francis Howe North, and he was a grown man. And he gave Ian all he could handle that day. And you could tell that kind of affected Ian in some ways. And I remember going to him after that later in the evening and just sitting down and talking to him about, hey, don't lose faith in yourself. That kid was special. You keep working hard, you're going to be special too. And I watched him grow, and I watched him mature for 4 years as a player, and I watched him go off to Lindenwood University and be a part of that program. And then I was fortunate enough that he believed enough in me to come back to East Prairie and be a part of my program for a couple years. And somehow, some way, he claims that he absorbed some kind of knowledge from me. I don't know what he got from me, but I know I watched a darn good football coach evolve out of Ian Penrod, and I watched him learn some tough lessons at Portageville and come out shining on the other side. And honestly, as someone that knows Ian and knows the capabilities of what he can do and what he had at East Prairie, I'm not surprised at 7-2. Not surprised one bit that they are primed to make a little bit of a run here in the playoffs. I think they're going to give some teams more than they're ready for. But man, I'm just so proud to just have been a part of his journey at all.
Yeah, no, we're excited to see next year when you guys play each other again.
Oh, I'm not. I mean, and it's just a simple fact of it's really hard to line up across the other side from him. He had said it once. He was quoted as saying it. It's still kind of weird, both of us not walking out of the same locker room door, and that's really what I dread most about when we play. We'd played before his first year at Portageville, and it was difficult. It was difficult to see him on the other side because at the end of the day, you don't want anything more than to win. You want to win. When it comes to family, you definitely want to beat them. And it's a conflicted feeling for me because I want to put a whooping on him, but also too, I don't want him to put a whooping on me. So there we go.
All right, Coach, do you have any final thoughts or any words for kind of the fans of the Dexter Bearcats?
No, keep showing up and showing out. My goodness, the crowds that we've had this season and the excitement that the community is providing these boys has been second to none. It's something that I don't know if I've really ever experienced as a coach. When we came here during the COVID year in 2020, I was the head coach at East Prairie. And I remember telling my wife after that game, I said, if I ever get an opportunity to go somewhere else and I ever get an opportunity to go to Dexter, I really hope that they give me a shot because that atmosphere was unreal. Carmen Fortuna was playing over the loudspeaker. And the kids were wild, and the crowd was wild, and the student body was giving me the business from behind. They were telling me things about my mother I never knew. And I was so impressed with the atmosphere, and I will tell you, in my 3 years here, this place has really come through in flying colors to make me feel welcome, to make my family feel special, and to support these boys. Keep showing up and showing out, Dexter. You're doing a great job, and we love you.
Awesome. All right, Coach Chad Jamerson, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. This was awesome.
All right. Always awesome to talk to a coach in the local area. Chad Jamerson's like super guy too, like super nice, super accommodating. Glad he got to talk to us. Anytime he wants to come back on the show, always glad to have him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it when the coaches come on the show, and he's one of the best in the area. So yeah, good for that.
So let's talk about these games coming up, because Class 1, that's where we're going to start to kind of dig into the meat of some of our local teams too. First up, let's talk about Hayti at Van Far. What do you think is probably going to happen there?
I think they're going to take a long bus ride. I had to look up. I didn't know where Van Far was, so I looked it up.
Very Van Far away.
Yeah, I like that. Very Van Far away. It's in Vandalia, which is north of St. Louis before, I guess, kind of up by Hannibal-ish area, and it's 4.5 hours from Hayti. So they've got a long bus ride just to get up there. They're going to play on Saturday instead of Friday. But they're a tough team. They've only got 2 losses. Bowling Green, who's 9-1, and North Callaway, who's 8-2. And that's some tough football up there. And my my kind of the thing that I normally stick by is whenever Southeast Missouri teams go play teams from outside of Southeast Missouri, you almost always take the other those other teams because they're usually pretty tough. And so I'm going to take Van Far in this one. I think I don't know much about them as far as what they look like or anything, but I know just traveling 4.5 hours to play a football game, that's tough.
I I'm going to take Van Far too. I think Hayti, I don't want to say I was a little bit baited by Hayti this year. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be a state winning team this year. I think they're going to be good going forward. They've had some, they've had some missteps in this season too. Stuff that you kind of have to work around, injuries especially. But, I mean, I'm not going to say Haytai's season's over right this second. They might turn this into a winning game. Who knows? But, moving forward, I mean, I'm going to expect them to be better next year.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought process at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I mean, would it shock me for them to go up and beat Van Far? No, but I just, just typically when teams from this area go up and play teams from up there and you see they're 7-2 or whatever, usually those teams are pretty good. And that's just kind of what I'm going to go on, that Van Far is a pretty good team, because I mean, their only losses were to two really good football teams. And so, yeah, it's just Hayti is going to have to bring their A game and not make many mistakes and use their athleticism. And, Van Far, I'm sure my guess is, from the way the teams usually play up there, they're going to try to control that line of scrimmage and control the game that way. And we'll just see how it plays out. But I'm going to go with Van Far there.
Moving on, let's talk about Malden at Crystal City. I think this game might be closer than we're expecting it to be, just because I know how Sykeston played them at the start of the season. That was at the start of the season, though.
Yeah, Crystal City's won 3 of their last 4. They really kind of seem to improve late in the year. Malden, they've got that win over Veritas. I mean, so they've got a little bit of momentum coming in. I mean, they've tasted a win. Malden's gonna have to travel up there to play up at Crystal City, so that's never fun. But I think Crystal City is just gonna have too much. Do I expect a turbo clock situation? I don't. I think Malden kind of can hang in there with them. I just think Crystal City just has a little bit too much in the end. But I think Malden's moving in the right direction.
No, I think I can agree with that. I mean, going into next year, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to lose. I'm hoping they beef up their program a little bit more. The things that we saw that were good this season too, like some of the mix up in the passing game, things like that. We know they have athletes at Malden. So I think it's just putting it all together. And I don't know what missteps are really causing them to just kind of continue to stumble there. But, I'm hoping they improve next year too.
Yeah, I think just continuity in the coaching staff will help. I mean, every year you've got a new coach coming in there, it seemed like. And so you got Coach Pulley in there this year. I'm assuming he's going to stay. I don't have any reason to know that he's not. So, I mean, if you stay and then you can kind of just continue to build that program, I think the continuity is the biggest thing for them. You're running the same stuff that, next year that you're running this year. You just, make some tweaks here and there, but you kind of stay in the same kind of program offensively and defensively. You'll get in the weight room and you'll know what to expect in the weight room a year out, and just your different, it's just important. I think a lot for the younger players, especially, that you have that continuity. You know what's expected. You just know everybody. And whenever things change every year, it's tough. And so yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with Malden, is just having that continuity, and I think building toward next year. I really think they're going to be a better team next year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Treston Pulley looks to me like a more systematic coach than some of the coaches in the area, and I think integrating that into a team, especially a team that's as hard up as Malden's been, that's hard in your first year. But like you said, these younger players, once they get that flow going, once they see that system in progress, I think they're going to start to build up more of a rapport with it.
Yeah, I do too, and I think they're only going up there. I mean, and that's just an important thing for them, is just to continue to have somebody, a leader that they can kind of look up to, and somebody who's just there, year after year after year. And that's a big thing, I think, in high school. And Malden, they've got a lot of athletes, a lot of players, and they played a lot of freshmen this year. And, again, we've talked about that several times already today, about these freshmen, and they just have to mature. I mean, you're not supposed to be playing on Friday nights when you're a freshman. You're not really mature enough in most cases. And so, but, they're kind of forced into it, and, those guys are only going to get better. I mean, they're learning from this experience, and they're still going to be young as sophomores. You don't expect sophomores to play a lot on Friday nights. You expect your juniors and seniors to do that. So, while I think next year is still going to be another growing year for Malden, I think they're going to be better than they were this year, and I think they can just continue that, moving up through the ranks here. And I think, a couple of years from now, they may be a pretty good football team.
Yeah, never say die. They might take it to Crystal City. Who knows? Moving on, let's talk about Chaffee at Charleston.
Charleston beat them 38-0 week 2. I feel like Charleston's only continued to get better. I mean, I think Chaffee's gotten better, but I don't think they've gotten, good enough to where they can beat Charleston. I think Charleston kind of, hands it to them pretty good, maybe about the same way. I've been very impressed with Charleston. They've got a lot of weapons. And I think, honestly, I think there's a meeting with St. Vincent in their future and in that district championship game. So I'm going to take Charleston in this one, and it's just hopefully you stay healthy and when you play Crystal City.
Yeah, Charleston, their improvement has been great. The only thing that, tends to disappoint me is that after we get high on them, after some of their games, like especially after Scott City, and then they take on East Prairie and then they just get washed by them. I mean, not to say that, East Prairie is a much improved team too, but I don't want to get too high on Charleston too quickly either. That just, I don't want to say it feels like a trap, but part of it kind of does, where it's just like, yeah, they're probably going to make it, like you said, to that district final. But St. Vincent, that's a hard team to beat too.
Yeah, I don't think they're beating St. Vincent. That's a tough team. But just to get there into a district championship game and give yourself a chance. And a lot of people weren't expecting Charleston to do much this year, and you get to a district championship game with what would be an 8-3 record. That's pretty impressive.
It's pretty impressive.
And so yeah, I think and who knows, maybe St. Vincent's going to have to play a couple of games too before and you don't know what kind of injuries and stuff happen. So you never know. The key is just to get there, and then once you get there, you see what you got on the other side. But I wouldn't expect St. Vincent to have much trouble in this district. But at the same time, Charleston's playing well, and just if you're Charleston, just get there, and then just see what happens.
Let's talk about Class 2 then. So, Valley Catholic Kelly.
Well, Kelly had a good game against New Madrid County Central. I don't know if you heard us talk about it earlier. Skylar Still put on a show. He was able to scramble and get the ball to Grant Burleson, and I don't expect that to happen on Friday night. I just don't. I think, Valley Catholic is too disciplined on defensively. If they force him out of the pocket, which they probably will, and he'll probably have to scramble for himself, it's going to be really tough getting the ball to Grant Burleson, because after watching the film, I would think that Valley's going to have that covered. And, Valley is such a fundamentally strong football team. I just don't see them losing this football game. I just think I think they just have too much for Kelly. Great for Kelly to get there, and hopefully they're going to play them tough, and they're not going to quit. Yeah. They're a bunch of tough kids, but I just think Valley has too much in this game, and I think they're going to win this game going away.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Kelly's been sneakily good in okay areas, but not consistent. Like you said, Valley Catholic is just one of the most consistently excellent programs in the area. And that's tough to run up on for any team. But, for Kelly, who's been good in really good areas and then, drop off in areas you really shouldn't, that's just a tough matchup for you at that point.
Yeah, and but such as districts, but it's the Kelly. That was the first time they'd ever beaten New Madrid County Central in their history. So that's a good win. You're coming in on a high. Who knows? Shock the world. Try to shock the world.
Sure,
it would shock the world because I don't think many people is expecting Kelly to go up there and win this game. But at the same time, again, like we were talking about, you're putting yourself in that position. I'm like, there's only one of those two teams are going to win the game because there's only two teams in that. So you got a chance. So go up there and give them your best shot, and maybe something happens. But obviously Valley is a heavy favorite, and I would be shocked if they didn't come out of that game.
Moving on, I'm actually really excited about this game.
I am too.
East Prairie at Crothersville.
East Prairie, like I said, they're looking for their first 9-win season since '94. That's a long time. And this team has just exceeded expectations. I kind of was sitting back thinking, well, how can they play with Crothersville? Do we need it to rain? Because we know Crothersville doesn't play very well in the rain. Is there some way that East Prairie can conjure up some rain coming to kind of help them out? But then I was like, well, East Prairie went and played Charleston, who's got a lot of team speed and stuff, and they handed it to Charleston. So would it shock me for East Prairie to win this game? No. And do I think East Prairie is going to hang tough in this game? I do. But I think Crothersville is the better team. They've won 9 of their last 10 against East Prairie. They are just solid, 1-11. They've got playmakers on both sides of the ball. But I think they're in for a fight, and they had better come ready for a fight, because East Prairie, we know they're not afraid of one. I mean, they will, they took Dexter, I thought, for the first half of that game. They really took it to Dexter and played them really, really tough, about as tough as anybody all year long. And I think they can do that to Crothersville. We'll see how Crothersville handles that, but I think they handle it okay, and I think they pull it out in the end.
I think the thing about East Prairie is right now they've surprised themselves in a way, and like you said, I think Crothersville is a more put-together team and consistently put-together team. For the past couple of years, too, they've been more consistently put together. It's kind of all built to this point. Mm-hmm. But for East Prairie, to be at this record so fresh, like with a new coach, everything like that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the kids all know Ian Penrod at this point. He's lived in East Prairie. Like mm-hmm. he lived in East Prairie when he coached at Portageville. So, mm-hmm. It's not as fresh as like anybody would expect, but this is a team that could do it. And I said it before, I think it's just going to be a shootout game. Mm-hmm. You're going to run up points, and whoever blinks first, that's who's going to probably lose this game. I don't know who that's going to be. I think Crothersville they've been dominant all season, and I think that's the change. East Prairie's had to improve. Crothersville has not had to improve.
Yeah. East Prairie's kind of playing with house money. They're like, okay, we got here. This is kind of, where a lot of people think we're going to end. They're kind of playing with house money and just go in there and just give them everything you got. And I expect a tough, hard fought game. And if Crothersville thinks that they're just going to run over them, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be a tough game. And man, this is going to be a fun game to watch.
No, I would kill to watch this game. Yeah, to your point, I mean, that's the thing for East Prairie right now, is that you must be riding high off your record regardless. I think the town is jazzed with their football team. And, if you lose here, take that on the chin as like, hey, we already won quarterfinals. We did better than anybody thought we were going to do. So, I mean, just take that into next year too. Like, you're only going to get better. Yeah. This is a program that's kind of flying high right now, and they're loving what they're seeing this year. They're loving what they're seeing for the future with Coach Penrod, and this is a program that's on the rise for sure. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to mention it again. I can't wait to see who comes out of this Park Hills Central and St. Gen game. Yeah, and it's another game that'd be great to see. I think these, again, they went to had just a battle earlier in the year. And Park Hill Central squeaked it out. That's why they get to host this game. But St. Genevieve, they're a tough team too. It's I don't know. I'm going to take St. Genevieve in this game because coming off getting beat by Park Hills earlier in the year when it was that close, I'm like, you're just a little bit away. You're going to be super motivated. Mm-hmm. And I just think, I don't know. My gut's just telling me St. Genevieve in this game, but I think it's going to be just a hard fought game and just two tough teams going at it. Now we always talk about like, hey, Dexter, if they have to play Park Hills, I mean, it's hard to beat a team twice. It's like, well, now Park Hills has to play St. Gen twice. So yeah. And I tell you what, if you're Dexter, you want them to play about a 6 or 7 overtime game where they just beat the crap out of each other. That would be the greatest thing if you're Dexter. Just let them just go at it and and that's the beauty of being the top seed. And that's the beauty of winning that game against Park Hill Central because, Fredericktown, they took Park Hill Central to overtime earlier this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not going to be just somebody who I think is going to be a pushover. I think Dexter is clearly better, and I think Dexter should win that game, going away. But, I don't know if they're going to go out there and beat them, 60-0, and just kind of coast. I mean, you're going to have to play well. Don't let them hang around. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to be in any kind of a game like Park Hills and St. Genevieve, that type of game where they're just beating the crap out of each other. So that's a benefit for Dexter right now. Yeah, for Dexter, you can't look past Fredericktown. I think the thing that's going to stop Dexter a little bit is they're coming off a bye week. They typically play slow against teams that like aren't on that upper echelon caliber. Not to say not to say Fredericktown isn't there. They very well could be, but I think Dexter's going to show themselves as a second half team again in this. It's probably going to be fairly close in the first half. I'm going to say, let's say like, I don't know, 7-6, maybe something like that.
Yeah. I think Dexter I wouldn't be surprised if they start off slow, but I think Fredericktown's just going to have a really tough time scoring on that Dexter defense. And if they do, it's just going to be, they're going to hit them with a shock play, a trick play or something, because I just really don't see them scoring much against that Dexter defense. And I think Dexter will just kind of build and build and build and build on that lead. I think that's kind of the way I kind of feel the game going. Hopefully, I think the biggest thing, if that is right, if it's 7-6 at halftime, I think that's the worst thing that could happen to Dexter, because then you give Fredericktown hope. Yeah. I think if you're Dexter, you just want to kind of go out there and put it on them early, like they did against Scott City, put it on them early, like they did against Sykeston and other teams, this year. I kind of see it going more, kind of maybe a slow start, but I just don't know if Fredericktown can score on that Dexter defense. I think that's going to be the difference for them, and hopefully for Dexter, they're able to get come out of there fresh, as fresh as possible, and then again watch Park Hills and St. Genevieve just go at it and let them just beat each other up, and then you get whatever's left out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about Dexter's offense, but I feel like their defense is one of their best aspects too, because it is an anaconda defense where that's why we say they're a second half team, is because that defense just strangles everything that comes up against them. They just wear teams down.
Yeah, they're physical. So they, we talk about Park Hills and St. Genevieve. I mean, Dexter is right there with them as a team that's just super physical and just will beat on you for 4 quarters. And that takes its toll, especially like you said in the second half. And we haven't talked about it much this year on here, but you have the Carr Trophy and the Derlin Moore Award for the top offensive and defensive players of the year. I mean, I would think that Alford for Dexter might have that inside track on getting the Defensive Player of the Year award for Southeast Missouri, or for the SEMO Conference in Southeast Missouri. I mean, because he is just so tough. It seems like he is always around the football. He's always in the backfield, putting pressure on the quarterbacks, and he's just always around the ball and and making things happen. And
he does it so casually.
Yeah, and you just don't realize it until you. I've rewound some of the games before, and I'm like, he's there again. It's just constantly, but he's not the only one. They've got a lot of players on that defense that are just really good players. I mean, Houston Neely, I don't know how many interceptions he has this year, but he's got a ton. I mean, it just seems like they're always in the passing lane. They're always where they're supposed to be, and they play so physical, and they don't miss many tackles. It's just they're just very fundamentally sound, and I just think they play very well defensively, and I think their defense sometimes gets overlooked.
So we're not really going to talk about Class 4 just because the only team in the area has been eliminated from contention. But Class 5, this is a rematch that, we'll see how it goes. Poplar Bluff at Cape Central. Poplar Bluff's playing a lot better.
They are. They've gotten a lot better. I think they won 4 of their last 5, last 3 straight.
I wasn't expecting them to beat Farmington.
No, but the funny thing with Poplar Bluff, they're 4-1 on the road. I'm like, they don't play well at home. We were talking
about, which is always interesting.
Yeah, we were talking with Sykes, and they can't play well away from home. Well, Poplar Bluff can't play well at home, and that's just kind of strange. But they play 4-1 on the road, and they beat some tough teams on the road. Man, if you're Cape, you better bring your A game. I think Cape should win this game, especially if they get some guys back that they're kind of expecting. At the same time, Poplar Bluff, they're going in there, knowing that, hey, we've seen a couple of these other teams that have played, a team twice, and they came back and, lost the first time and won the second. If you're Poplar Bluff, you're kind of talking about that all week. You're talking about how well you play on the road all week. You're trying to, pump them up, and so Cape had better be ready to play. I think Cape's just too talented for them. I really do. But at the same time, I mean, if they come out and they let them hang around, that could be problems late in the game. And so if you're Cape, you want to jump on them early and don't let them start to feel that they can play with you, because that's Poplar Bluff. They're playing well right now.
And looking ahead too. I mean, whoever wins this game has to play most likely Cardinal Ritter. You got to think about if you want to play a tough game or not, because if Cape Central really has to play against Poplar Bluff and it's a close game, well, I mean, don't be injury prone at that point.
Yeah, you want your injured guys back. And, while you would love to save them one more week for that Cardinal Ritter game, you can't, because if they can play, you've got to play them, because Poplar Bluff's going to bring a tough game to you. And, it is what it is. Hopefully you come out of there healthy. But you got to win. You got to win that semifinal game before you can play in that championship game against Cardinal Ritter. So I'm like, you got to put everything on the table. And this Poplar Bluff team is not going to be a pushover. And they're, like I said, they're playing really well right now. They've got a lot of momentum, and they're not afraid of Cape. They've already played them once. They got it handed to them. But I've seen this Poplar Bluff team play Cape before. Whenever I thought Cape was much, much better, and Poplar Bluff played them, they went back and forth. As a matter of fact, it was last year they went back and forth with them. So it's not going to shock me if this is a really, really close game.
Moving on to Class 6, let's really quick talk about Lindbergh at Jackson. So I don't know too terribly much about Lindbergh.
Lindbergh, I know a little bit about them. They're a very run-heavy team. Their coach is Nathan Norman. He used to play for Jackson, coached at Cape Central, so he knows all about Jackson. They play really, really good defense. They have a 2-quarterback system. They kind of switch it up a little bit, where one will kind of throw a little bit more than the other one. One of them is Coach Norman's son, actually, who's a sophomore. But I don't think they can beat Jackson. I really don't. I think it may be a tough game for a few quarters, but I think Jackson has too much for them. I think that Jackson-Seckman game is going to happen. And Jackson beat Lindbergh 41-13 last year. I kind of see it similar to this year. I don't think I would be shocked if Lindbergh were to win this game.
Now, looking forward, if that is the case, what do you think about Seckman versus Jackson?
I don't know. That's a toss-up. I mean, I don't know a ton about Seckman, except that it seems like they play Jackson every year, and it's always a good game. And that's what I would expect again. It'd be tough because you have to go play at Seckman. It'd be a lot better if you were Jackson, you were playing in the pit. But tough game regardless. Just get there first, and then being from Southeast Missouri, I would want Jackson to win. I would probably pick them to win. We'll see next week, but man, I don't know. It's going to be a good game.
It's an exciting time for districts. Semifinals, I feel like that's when it's really starting to get competitive for everybody.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a lot more excited for this week coming up than I was last week, just because you just don't, some of the games you just know what you're going to get with a lot of them. But this week, like you said, there's a couple games this week that I would just love to be at, and maybe I will. But at the same time, it's a lot more exciting, and you just looking forward to these games, and then really I'm looking forward to next week for some of these district championship games. Yeah,
I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see the teams that I'm super interested in to either move on or start to prepare for basketball.
Yeah.
All right, that has been this episode of the SEMO Sports Zone. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.